Hello, loves. Welcome back. I am so excited to be sitting here with Dr. Lucy Brown, who is a professor in the neurology department at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York City, who specializes in the study of, here we go, folks, romantic love, which is our entire department around matchmaking and the Lord's blessing of love. So I'm so excited to be diving in and asking you the questions that God gave us mind, body, reason, and skill, but our mind is the most empowering muscle that we have to practice to be smart in all decisions we make, right?
Right.
Welcome. We're so excited we're here. And I feel like I have with you, have a ton of questions. So I don't want to waste time. I want to also just hear from you so our audience can also be educated when it comes to all the things that you've studied and you help couples and singles and things go through. So, what specifically led you to studying the neuroscience of romantic love?
Well, it was really another person who began it. Her name is Helen Fisher. And I met her at a meeting. This often happens to scientists, and they meet up at some kind of conference and start talking. She was an anthropologist. She died recently. She's written several books. And so people may know her.
I remember when I started my practice, I studied her. I
You
loved
did.
her. Yeah, I did. I mean, I started 16 years ago. I don't mean to interrupt you, but she was
That's
one
right.
of the people that I studied getting into all of that. So that's awesome.
So we started talking, and she knew that I was a neuroscientist. And she said, Lucy, it'd be so great if we could look at the brain systems of romantic love. And there have been some studies in animals of attachment, but, probably, although she certainly talked about attachment and kind of romantic love behaviors that other mammals and even birds can show us, really hasn't been studied in humans. I said, "Well, I'm not so sure that we can do it. It's really hard to look in the human brain and study emotion." Because this was like in 1990 or something like that. And neuroscientists were really hesitant to look at emotion in the brain. But then Helen also talked to a guy named Art Aaron, who's a social psychologist. And Art had been studying romantic love a lot as a psychologist and had all kinds of questionnaires that he had used to study people and and their feelings, and to quantify them. That's the big key. You want to be able in science, you have to quantify something. So when I learned from Art that there was something called the passionate love scale, so that we could quantify, we could put a number on love, no matter what, not maybe not the number, but a number. I said, okay, I think we can try this. I think we can try to study the human brain in love. And of course, I also was very interested in studying euphoria. I looked at euphoria and how, the taste when something tastes good or you're thirsty. I studied hunger and thirst in animals, and I really wanted to see if the brain systems were the same in humans.
Okay.
So, and romantic love, what could be more predictable euphoria than that? When you're first in love, that first feeling of nothing else matters in the world,
Mhm.
right? Except being with that person. And when you're with that person, you feel so great. And the
Mm.
word is euphoria. Sometimes you're anxious, especially when you're away from them. But when you look at a picture of them or you look into their eyes, really, you feel euphoric. So that's what got me started, really. Helen Fisher, Art Aaron, we formed this great collaboration and decided, okay, this is going to be hard work, but let's go.
Yeah.
Let's look at the physiology, the brain physiology of romantic love.
I love that. That is the whole thing is fascinating to me when I remember starting all of this thinking, why is it so difficult to fall in love and be equally aligned, which led down to a lot of it has to do with lust and attraction. So I love that you guys have broken down the actual science behind this of why people fall in love too. So, as a professor in neurology, what is something you teach about love and the brain that really surprises your students?
Oh, well, kind of what relating to what you just said, that romantic love turns out to be really based on survival systems in the brain, and that's why it can be so hard to control. The big question is, why do we fall in love with who we fall in love with? But when you fall in love, you are activating a brain system that was designed by nature, by what God gave us, um, for it's part of our survival system, just like the system we need to know to eat, to be hungry. It's the same system as being thirsty. So you need these systems in order to stay alive. So that's one of the reasons it can be so tricky. That's why it's so hard to know sometimes what to do. Or some people are, especially when they first fall in love, they're confused.
Right.
Um, this kind of takes over their life. But that's what it's meant to be. That's how we're designed because we do need each other. In fact, we can think of hunger and thirst and romantic love, but even long-term attachment as the original addiction systems or the original addictions that we as mammals had to have these systems because if you go without eating, not good. If you can just turn down food, if you can just turn down water, no. And so, yeah, sometimes you just can't turn down another person. So this is partly for a large part of it, of course, is for the survival of the species. So romantic love encourages sex, right? And human reproduction, which is totally essential for the survival of the human species. And to go on, we pass on our genetics, and that's a very important part of our lives.
And everybody talks about now the attachment theory. And you had mentioned earlier about that attachment. I'm assuming that's something that you implement in, or how do you feel around all of that?
Oh, yes. Attachment was the next thing we studied.
Right.
We looked at people who had been in love for a long time, or we looked at people who had had a relationship for at least 1 year and were about to get married. They were about to make a commitment. And this is interesting because the romantic love systems. They're at the reflex level. They're at a nonverbal level. You know,
Yeah.
very basic part of our brain. So the attachment system is also at a very basic part of our brain, but it's a little higher up in level. And so it has a lot more connections with the neocortex, which is our cognitive brain. Okay, so the attachment systems are communicating more with cognition, like does he remember my birthday? Will she be a good caregiver for children? That kind of thing. What movies does she like? That kind of thing. That kind of thing, um, the cognition, what we do together, the kinds of things that we enjoy together, helps to build the attachment that we feel to somebody
Sure.
else. But of course, it's our history too. So we bring the history of the people who have been our caregivers in our lives
Right.
to this attachment physiology. Yeah,
Which our brain, I'm assuming, and you know best, right? Then holds on to those memories that we then bring into whatever we see in front of us to
exactly.
help us connect or not, which sometimes I also say can be a good or a bad thing when we're being judgmental, taking over our conscious or subconscious mind, right?
Exactly. So, by the way, when you mention the word judgmental, that's another thing here that we studied people who were in love and in their first stages of love, the early stage of love, I should say. And then we called them up, like I think it was a little over 3 years later, something like that. Yes. And we asked them, "Are you still together with the person, who you were in love with then, like 3 years ago?" And we were lucky because 50% of the people in the study were still together and 50% were not. So we could compare what had happened in the brains of those two groups. Would the people who were looking at their romantic partner in the early stages and then broke up be different from the people who were looking at their romantic partner and stuck with it, you know, or were
Mhm.
still together for whatever reason? And it's kind of interesting because, yes, there were differences. And the part of our brain, so we have, humans are constantly judging other humans. It's
Mhm.
a natural thing to do, and it's okay as
Yeah.
long as you don't go too far, right?
Right.
And you want to kind of watch it, especially in a romantic relationship.
Right.
So a lot is known about that system in the brain. Other people have studied that judging system. It's very cognitive. It's in the front of the brain. And for those people who stayed together, the activity in that part of the brain was way down when they looked at the person they were newly in love with. So
Okay.
they were suspending negative judgment.
Sure. That makes sense.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
That's awesome. So do you still do these studies today among your own students?
No, no. I'm retired now, so I just write about it and help other people analyze their data. Yeah,
I
and there
love
aren't
it.
that many people doing the studies now, which is too bad.
Well, and
'Cause
it's funny because doing this for almost 16 years now, I am very adamant because we've studied, right? The 50 to 60-year-olds, we're doing the 40-year-olds but now I'm fascinated with my 20-year-old demographic because they are our future. And as we're starting to get younger clients like in their 20s to 30s, they're really struggling out there. So I'm like, we need to do another market research, I feel like, on that age demographic. I'm gonna be calling you and we're gonna talk this through. I know you're retired, but I'm like, we need this for the future growth of what's happening because of COVID and all these other things that have changed the phones, all these technology that we're gonna
Oh, yes.
we're gonna do a call after this and talk a little bit more. So stay tuned because that's coming.
Great, great. Yes, good.
Okay, so what information do you find most helpful to share with singles looking for love or with someone who doesn't know, they have even experienced love?
First of all, when when you're in love. You just do. Uh, uh, so if you're questioning it, you can um, say, well, maybe it's not the early stage intense romantic love that we studied. If you're questioning it, it's not quite that um, romantic love can be so it grabs you so tightly. You usually know it. So if you're questioning, well, you can try taking there are questionnaires out there. We have them on a website, the Passionate Love Scale. You can see how you score. Maybe you're, feeling kind of middling. But the fact is, we were designed to fall in love. And almost everybody falls in love eventually. Don't worry about it. There are many ways to fall in love. That we studied the quick way, the quick way that it's some people fall in love. It's a love at first sight. But then there's something else we call slow love, which it grows out of friendship. And you can never quite tell who you might fall in love with, who you know right now, you know, who's a friend. And there are all kinds of things to learn about yourself to kind of help you be ready, I guess I would say. And so it's kind of relax, is my advice. Relax, it's going to happen.
So when you did your study back in the day, did you do it on quick love versus slow love to see
N-
which one lasted longer?
No, we didn't do that, but that would
Ah,
be a
we need
nice
to do
study.
that because now
Yes,
I'm just
yes.
curious because we stay with our couples after we match them. So we track their journey. right? And
Right.
there's some that fell in love quicker, got married sooner than have challenges, some that didn't, it's there's no obviously complete proven science behind all of it. It's just impossible because everybody falls differently. But it's just fascinating to me. I was just curious if you had found that the slower love lasts longer, right? Than the
No,
lustful
I
fast
mean,
love.
if only there were such a prediction for that. I know.
I love it. Okay. Can you explain the passionate love scale that you reference to and things that how it benefits individuals and couples today?
The passionate love scale, again, okay, this is when people take it if they're not sure they're in love. So, one thing Helen and I used to say, if you want to test out, your feelings of love, and the way we tested people was to say, how many times a day do you think of this person? Or what percentage of the day? A lot of people said, "Are you kidding? I never stop thinking about them." That's the answer where they're really in the early stages of typical romantic love. Some people would say, 80% is good though too. 80%. Yeah, yes, it's this intrusive thinking. You just can't stop thinking about them. This is the critical test for knowing if you're in that state that we're describing, if you're part of it. And then you just, see where you are in terms of your obsession with the other person or not, and whether you can track it actually and see if it goes down a little bit, which it does for almost everybody. Almost every 70% of people that your score on the passionate love scale. Remember, it's passionate. It says passionate, not attachment type, not long-term warm fuzzy feeling. Passionate. Because some of the questions include, do my hands tremble a little bit when I'm near that person, or do I get sweaty palms when I'm near that person? So those kinds of things stop happening after you've been with someone a year or so, right? And it's a good relationship, when you're confident in the relationship.
I
So
always say that's when domestic kicks in, right? When it gets to reality.
right,
That's funny. So the passionate love scale, that is what you said is on the website that people can take, right? Just for our
right.
audience to take the quiz. I have all of our individuals that we work with and take with is the personality assessment, the love languages, all those things that kind of just help us know each other better. So we'll definitely put some notes on how to check that out. There's so much more depth to this than anybody thinks through. They're just going through this love bubble, hoping it happens. But there is an art to also being a great partner and
Oh
being the
yes.
right one, too, that we really work hard at when we're matching because there's so many more key functions or details than just two people that are attracted to each other. We want it to stand the length of time, which is the alignment for the future too that matters. So I love it.
Exactly.
I geek out
Exactly.
when it comes to all of this stuff. Okay, so do the feelings of love affect men and women in a women's brain the same, or is it a little bit different when it comes to the way men fall or women do?
So those basic reflex systems that I was talking about,
Hmm.
the survival systems, those are no different. Those are
Okay.
the same. Men and women are exactly the same in terms of the systems that they use. That survival, and even for the basic attachment system, that nonverbal. It's the same system that is used when people are addicted to drugs. So that that system's the same. What can be different, although this still needs more study, is the cognitive systems. That whole complex cortex. As I mentioned before, things like women are more interested in, is he going to remember our anniversary? That kind of thing. Uh, and parts of the brain that have to do with um, remembering that kind of thing are more, say, in some studies, are more active in women. It's so variable, the whole cognitive part for men and women, even though men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I mean, yeah, there's something, that it's a little bit there. but it's not 100% reliable. Men and women can be so much the same as well as different.
Yeah. So when you talked about earlier, the slow love versus the fast love, or however you phrased it, but does the brain process friendship, romantic love, and lust all differently, or is it just a pace, or how?
No, there are different systems, right? It processes them all differently. Yep, there are definitely different systems for each that now at some points they overlap, but it's like a tree, the trunk of the tree. So for romantic love, you're going to have the trunk here, for sex here, for friendship here. But then as the branches go out, there are places where they overlap and the leaves will overlap.
Sure, because I do tell everybody you definitely want to build a deep rooted friendship in with passionate love, so it will stand the test of time. Because if it's just lust, it may not, right?
Exactly.
Okay, how does the brain reward system work in response to romance?
So it's that's the system that's active. It's the brain's reward system
Okay.
that's active when you look at the face of the person you're in love with. It's your reward system, that reward system that tells you water tastes so good when you're thirsty.
That is true. That is true.
It's the reward system that, to some extent, that also makes you love chocolate if you're a chocolate lover. Not everybody is. It's that basic reward system that we need for survival that's working. That's the system that's working in romantic love. There's almost no greater reward when you're in love than looking at the face and being with your romantic
And
partner.
having that depth, right?
Right.
So, for all of my married couples out there or in exclusive relationships that, their marriage or the relationship starts to go stagnant, what can you say that is helpful for like rational to get that euphoria back in those relationships? Is there any recipe for growth when it's gone stagnant?
So there are two possibilities. One is to activate that reward system again, the way it was activated as much as you can by remembering what it was like. Sitting there and remembering what the first kiss was like and really remembering it, really imagining it. The first kiss, something about the first date, something about you remember that you liked especially much. Remembering the beginning of the relationship and when you didn't know everything about the other person, when there wasn't so much cognitive stuff. So, yes, you want to reactivate that reward system as much as you can. The other thing that is important to do, and Helen Fisher emphasized this a lot, when you see something, the example she would give is, oh, he's always late. This drives me crazy. You know, like, I cannot bear the fact that he is always late, but he reads to me out loud, and that's something that she loved. So seeing the negative things, yes, but but then saying, yes, that negative thing is there for sure. Notice it, but then say, but it's always a balance. But what balances that out? Mm, yeah, remembering the good things. Remembering times when your reward system is activated. That's what it is.
Which I love you say that because we say that to our couples too. Let's go back to the beginning, right? When you fell in love and remembering all of those feelings and emotions behind it. Also remembering, love is a choice and it takes two. And no one is going to be everything you want them to be. And there's no one more perfect than God. So that is what I remind a lot of my couples that remember you chose to want to be in this relationship. And I love how you said, choose the good because it usually always outweighs whatever little quirk they have. We all have quirks, we all have little irritating things that we do, but immerse in knowing that you know them and find it a way to be adorable for whatever it is. Or, I have some people in my life that I know, I always tell them 15 minutes ahead of time the time they need to be there, because I know they're always going to be late. So you you get used to it. You work with what you have because it's so much better with all the other things, like you said, that are more important, which relationships are all about compromise too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How does love change or alter the brain itself?
So the only way that I know, it's changing the blood flow for sure in your reward system. It changes the blood flow in this part of the brain, this reflex part of the brain here. It changes the blood flow there and in other parts, certainly, as I said, in these nonverbal parts of the brain, but it's going to change the neural activity in your brain and the blood flow in your brain. Both things. Yeah.
So, would you define that you're calling it the blood flow or the reward, that passion and love are in that same?
You mean sexual passion?
Well, I was just going to say, like, you could be passionate about something, but then you could also be passionate about a person. Like,
Right.
is thing and love, right? A tangible something that you're passionate about, like you really want to achieve this goal, or you're passionate about this mission, the same as being passionate when it comes to love. Two totally different.
Right. Well, it's not totally different because it's the same general area of the brain. It's also using that reward system, but for other people, it's on the right side. And for things, it's on the left. Yeah.
Which is going to be a whole nother podcast we're going to talk about, because I feel like this is something, the better we know and we understand ourselves, then we can understand other people, to be open minded, to have these conversations that
Oh,
lead to
being
so much more.
open-minded is everything, by the way. Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
And sometimes being able to put the other person first too, you know.
Yes, it makes all the difference. Okay, what resources do you recommend for those interested in studying the science of love for their personal growth and understanding?
Well, of course, I'm going to recommend the books by Helen Fisher.
Yeah, she's
Um,
amazing.
right, The Anatomy of Love and then Why Him, Why Her. And that emphasizes some of the compatibility issues. But she talks about this. She's very interested. She's one of the very few people who are that interested in the science of love, right? And making it, some people are studying it still, but they're still in the stages of it's not kind of ready, for them to um, put it in the language for the layperson to really understand and get something from it. But I hope this happens soon. Helen Fisher's books, there's always the resource of theanatomyoflove.com, that website.
Hmm.
There's a lot on there. And because the motto of that website is know thy brain, because then you know yourself. Know thy brain, know thyself, know thy partner.
I love that, because I say all day long, if you don't know who you are, how are you ever going to attract the one that you're aligned with? Right? So many people just walk around, they're clueless. They have no idea who they are. And they wonder why they don't get into these successful relationships, because they haven't spent the time of self growth to be able to articulate who they are, what they want, and what, their desires are too. So I love everything you're doing. How can the audience dive into finding you? If you could share the website or just information. I know you're retired now, but I'm sure you have other resources of people that they can connect with or just learn more from.
The main thing is www.theanatomyoflove.com.
And
That's
look at,
the
speaking
main.
of love, your puppy just walked in. I love it in
Yes,
the background. There's nothing better than animal love as well, too, right?
that's right.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy, for joining us today to talk
Oh, I'm
about.
so glad you invited me. Thank you.
Yes, and I was going to say, I feel like I have so many more questions, so we might have to do a 2.0 of this. What we always love is when our audience writes in and asks us more questions to maybe circle back around and, just hear what they're wondering about. And we're definitely gonna have to talk about studying. I feel like the younger demographic as well. So thank
Right.
you so much for your time and joining us. And we cannot wait for our next chat. God bless and have a great week.
God bless. Same to you.
It's been another great talk on this episode of One True Talks by Renee Rochelle. I look forward to our next chat. Please write in your questions and comments so I can be sure to talk about whatever it is you want to discuss in our next upcoming episode. Lots of love. God bless. XOXO.